Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Real Talk with Coach Sherri, and today it is April 16th, 2020, and today would have been my mother's 80th birthday. And I just wanted to come out to this amazing park. This park is called Frank Liske, Liske Park in Concord, North Carolina. And I just wanted to walk and reflect on my mother and all that she meant to me. She passed away August 30th, 2010. So this upcoming August, it would be 10 years. And I'm going to have you guys walk with me. For the past few days, I was thinking about where I could walk that would have a lot of meaning and just a place where I could really focus and reflect. And there were a couple of places. I mean, I could have walked in my neighborhood, but I really didn't want to encounter neighbors. And, I appreciate you guys for walking with me, and I didn't want to just show you the ground and pop up occasionally. I really wanted to have you also see some things that are very scenic. So there were a couple of parks that I know here in the Charlotte area that have amazing trails. I've actually taken you with me a couple of times to some of those parks. But today this park just kept coming up in my mind. Frank Liske. I haven't been here in a long time, maybe a year. And I thought this would be a great park to come, to walk, and to reflect. Yeah, they have those paddle boats over there. I don't think it's open. Shouldn't be open right now. Even though we have the stay at home, there are a lot of people here. There's typically more people here on the weekends. I usually don't come on the weekends because of that. But during a weekend, this time of day, there's usually not a lot of people. But today there are. But that's fine. Still keeping our distance. This ground is gravel, is great for your knees. It's great if you're running, walking, even if you have like a mountain bike. The pebbles are small enough that it won't interfere with your tires. People also fish in this pond. I'm not sure what fish or what type of fish they catch, but they do fish in this pond also. Yeah, so I'm the youngest of three, and my oldest brother, Sheldon, I want to give a shout out. I actually call him Will. I like to give people nicknames, and my nicknames usually stick, but they usually are only just nicknames that I can call them. People know who I'm talking about, but they call them by their real name, but I call them the nickname. So I want to say maybe when I was in high school or so, I started calling my brother Wilberforce. Don't ask me why. I just started calling him Wilberforce. And mind you, his name is Sheldon. And then I went from Wilberforce I shortened it to Wilbur. Then when I got to college and when I come home, I shortened it from Wilbur to Willie. And now I just call him Will. So he checks out my YouTube and he said, why don't you, make a video about Mom? Talk about her. I think that would be kind of cool. And I said, you know what? I will. And I thought today would be the perfect day to do that because it's her birthday. So in honor of her, I'm doing it today. I'm gonna see what kind of fish. Excuse me, what kind of fish do you catch here?
Different. They got catfish, brim. Sometimes they still have trout in here. They said it's bass, but I haven't seen anybody catch a bass yet.
Okay. Do you catch usually?
I've caught some catfish.
Are they like farm catfish, or is this kind of farm? Do they feed them here, or how does that work?
No, they don't. They don't feed them. I know they have them brought in from somewhere.
Okay.
And then they just eat the minerals, what's in here.
Uh-huh. Okay, cool. I always see people fishing, but I never asked what kind of fish.
Yeah, to get a peek, there's a. I don't know if you can see them, but they're in between that bush right there. Just swam out. I'm trying to.
Let me see. Hmm. Are they a good size, the fish?
Yeah, this looks pretty good. Pretty good sized fish out there.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, good luck to you.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you too. Stay safe. All right. Sounds like some pretty good fish are in this pond. I love fish. I don't fish, but I love eating fish. I think fish are good. They're not bad for you unless you get the wrong kind. Not sure what the wrong kind are, but yeah. So there's a neighborhood here. You can't really see the houses, which is pretty cool too. It's good for privacy for the families there and for the people that enjoy the park. But it's nice to live near a park as full as this park is. When we lived in New Orleans, we actually lived outside of New Orleans in Kenner. We lived near a park, right? Like behind our backyard was the park. And we didn't have kids yet until, well, our son was a baby when we moved from there. But a couple of times some kids came to visit us, and it was nice to have that park there for them to, go and play in and stuff. And sometimes we would walk our dog around there. They had some sand, and he used to love to run in the sand. And he was a boxer. So when the sand would hit him in the back, he would go crazy. And we're like, you did that to yourself. You're so silly. But yeah, for some reason, even though it is still snake season, April through October, I'm not as concerned as seeing snakes here as I was when I was in my neighborhood in that path that I had never been. Let's see.
They're all jumping in.
Wow. Can you guys see those turtles?
Right here. Hurry up. They're all jumping in the water. Lucy, stand up. Right there. There's only one left. There was like 8 of them up there. I wonder if they made that for the turtle.
Wow.
Hey, get away.
It's fine. Let's see. We can see the turtles. I guess the other ones they said jumped in the water, but I don't see them. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so even though this is like wildlife, I've as many times as I walk through this park, which has been many, I've never seen a snake. I hope I don't see one now, but I've never seen a snake. Yeah, let's hope I don't see one today. I'm not going to see one today. Let's put it that way. So, my mother had me when she was 29, and I'm 8 and 9 years younger than my brothers. So, and my father was 31. So, you know, I like to think that they were definitely ready for me. I know girls are definitely a lot different than boys. My mother used to always say, I cost her way more than my brothers did combined. You know, girls always need something, want something. They really want something and they think they need it, but they just want it. And my mother definitely was a great daughter's mom. We had a very, very close relationship. A relationship that I definitely tried to recreate with my own daughters. You know, being that parent that didn't pass judgment, listened, and supported, be very supportive. You know, I'll stop, drop, and roll everything for my kids, all 3 of them, for my legacies. And that's how my mother was. She literally would stop whatever and do whatever she could do for us, her children. She loved us. She never compared us to each other or to other cousins, friends, you know. She was supportive in everything that we ever did. And I appreciate her for that. You know, no judgment. I remember one time when I was in high school and I was dating this guy from another town. And it was before I had my license, before he had his license. So back then, you know, you courted. And so he would come over and we would just sit in the family room, look at TV, whatever. Sometimes we might meet at the movies. But I remember one day, and my mother would pick him up. Like, she would take him home. I don't know, most of the times he would walk to the house, but if it was late, she would take him home. And one day, just randomly, she was sitting in the dining room and she called me in to talk. And I was like, yeah. And she said, I just wanted to share with you, I don't think that guy is good for you. You know, I think I heard some things. I'm not sure if it's all true about him, but I don't think he's right. I'm not telling you to not date him because I don't want you to sneak. But I just wanted to let you know how I felt. And, you know, hearing that at first, I wanted to be like, what? What are you talking about? Who said anything? What'd they say? But for some reason, even though I was like 15 at the time, I stopped and I listened to what she was saying. And I'm glad I did, because, you know, the fact that she said, I'm just letting you know how I feel. I don't want you to break up with him because I don't want you to sneak around, but I want you to just kind of have your eyes open. That resonated with me. I don't know too many parents, especially in the 80s, this was about 85, 86, that would have, you know, respected their teenager enough to put it like that. Most people, especially my friends, I know, especially one in particular, she, you know, would date guys. Well, this one guy, nobody really liked him for her. And, her mother forbade her from dating him, and really that just brought her closer to him. It took her years, I want to say decades, to get him out of her system. And when she did, we were grown. And she was like, I realized everything everybody said about him was right. I should have listened, And I'm like, wow, it took all these years and 2 kids later to finally realize that he wasn't right. But sometimes people do that to be rebellious. You think you're pushing them away by sharing your feelings, but you're actually pushing them closer. So as a parent, that taught me to be mindful of that. If my kids, and I really want to say, well, my legacies, I really want to say my daughters, not so much my son. I mean, his first girlfriend, my husband and I went with him to her house for the first time. I wanted her mom to meet us, let her know our son got parents that love him. And, you don't have to worry about trying to adopt him as your own. Because I know some parents do that, or mothers especially when they have a good young man, like I know my son is. They be wanting to adopt them. You ain't gotta adopt my kids. They good. So with my daughters, I case the guys out, make sure, and I support them. But if there's anything I see, I definitely let my daughters know. You might want to not fall too hard for this one. Not saying, not to date them, but you might want to just chill for a second. So that was the type of mother that I had. I remember when I was a lot younger, like 1st, 2nd grade, and when I would come home, because my mother worked part-time before she fully worked side by side with my dad. She worked part-time at this university in my hometown. The university is Fairleigh Dickinson University, and she was an administrative assistant. And actually, it was good that she did that because she was able to get her associate's degree paid for because she was an employee. And she was very proud of that. She went back to school. I was young. My brothers were in high school. And she was able to get her degree. When she got her degree, she went to work for my dad, with my dad full time. But in the meantime, when she was just working part time, I would come home from school, walk home from the bus stop, and she would have a snack ready. And we would always play some kind of game, like dominoes or Uno, some kind of game, life. And I enjoyed that so much. That's one thing that I wish I would have done more with my kids, played more games with them. I don't know, I think it might have been different, maybe because I was kind of like an only child since my brothers were so much older than me. And, if I didn't have a friend over, I basically was going to be playing by myself. So my mother was that friend a lot of times because, like I said, I wish I would have played more games like that with my kids. But my kids had each other. They're all 20 months apart. So they played with each other all the time. They had each other. So I'm wondering if that, if that's why things were a little different. But I enjoyed those times. And then there was a moment when I might have been 10 when my mother started working full time, and I had to be a latchkey kid. And I had to have, I didn't carry the key to school because nobody wanted me to lose it. So they would put it under the mat, somewhere under the mat by the front door. So I would have to go home, sit down on the front step, sit there for a little bit. My mother practiced this with me. I had to sit on the front steps and sit there, pretend like I was doing something, look at my bag, then slowly reach behind me and fish out the key. Don't just get up with the key. Sit there a little bit longer and then get up, unlock the door, slip in and lock the door and everything behind me. And don't open it for nobody if the doorbell rang. And so I did that for probably maybe like a year or two until I started doing more after school activities. But that was a big deal because, like I said, I'm 8 and 9 years younger than my brothers. My brothers always had each other. So even if they did stay home by themselves, they always had each other. Whereas I had to be by myself. And that was fine. But, you know, that was the difference for my parents in raising me versus my brothers. They had to strategize a little bit more. But yeah, my mom, she was interesting. I always had these not party dresses, but kind of like a party dress. A lot of taffeta dresses and with ruffles and, you know, lace overlay, silk, a lot of things like that, because my mother went to a lot of events because she networked a lot for the business. And, you know, so when people had events and affairs, and my parents typically would do the centerpieces. And so my mother would go to those events. My father would go often with her too, but especially the ones during the day, like the luncheons and breakfasts and things like that, she would take me. I would never know where we were going. She would just tell me what to wear. Like, don't worry about where we're going. You're going to enjoy it. Just put this on. And that's what I would do. You know, now kids be like, where are we going? I don't want to go. Even though they've never been some places, they talk about they don't want to go. How you don't want to go? How you know you're not going to have the best time of your life? You know, I definitely had to nip my kids of that early and often. Like, if you've never been, you can't say you don't want to go. If you've never been, you can't talk about how you're not going to like it if you've never been. So it's important to try everything at least once. And that's something that I always tell them, you know, don't miss out on opportunities that you've never done before because you think you're not going to like it. At least try it once. It's like food. Don't talk about the food you don't like if you've never had it before. At least taste it and see how you'll like it.
Either order it online.
So this must be like a walking group. It's a lot of people.
You know, when he was there.
There's some more coming. Wow, this flooded. This is usually not this moist right here from some heavy rains we've had lately. This is looking like swamp a little bit. Marshland. The Everglades. See, this is the stuff that concerns me when it comes to snakes and things, because they like that. Especially now, it's kind of warm. It's about 75 degrees and sunny. It was cold yesterday. It was about, well, cold for us for this time of the year. It was probably about 61 high yesterday. You know, we've been rocking with 83, 75, 89 degree temperatures here lately. So anything under 70, it's like a cold front. Yeah, and my mother was into quality and not quantity. So she was like that for everything. Her clothing, her friends, her everything. And she did not like to shop at like penny any stores. She'd rather either wait for the sale or save up her pennies and, you know, get the quality item than to just buy anything just to have it. Her closet was not filled with fluff. It was filled with quality garments, quality shoes, jewelry. I think she may have had one pair of jeans, but they were like slacks. And, you know, she was always outfitted. And I caught that bug. I call it granimals, where, you know, if you're gonna buy the shirt, you have to buy the pants or the skirt or something to go with it. It's really hard for me, even to this day, to just buy like one item and figure out later what I'm gonna match it with. I just bought it because I like it. It's hard for me to do that. And I know I got that from my mother, because if she was gonna buy like a shirt, she would always look for what else can go with it. My girls aren't like that. I'm glad they're not. They're able to, you know, buy different pieces, and so they end up having a really nice wardrobe that they can ultimately mix and match things with. My mother always wore accessories, and I didn't realize that until one of my cousins, my cousin Yolanda, after my mother passed, she said to me, she said, wow, I remember Aunt Jessie used to have the most beautiful necklaces. Every time I saw her, she always had on a necklace, earrings, bracelets, like she was always adorned. And I never really like took note of that. And and I was like, you're right. She always would have, jewelry on, not gaudy, very classy, beautiful gold, beautiful beadwork, high quality. And even when I was caring for her, as she lived with ALS, whenever I took her out, I always made sure, even though I didn't recognize that she, always did this, but I would always make sure to put on her necklace, her earring, her cross necklace especially. I always make sure she had that on. I was just checking to make sure I have my key. This is not the park you want to drop your key somewhere. That's why you try to stay on one path, so you have to double back. You can. But do you guys see how beautiful this park is? It's windy. It's warm, but it's windy. I hope that this video is steady for you, because I do have my selfie stick that I'm holding versus just having my camera in my hand. That's all I film using is my phone. I don't have a camera. I don't have a whatever cameras people have to vlog. I just use my iPhone. So I'm not trying to invest in anything. I invested in this selfie stick. That's about it. Probably should invest in more, but not right now. Especially not right now. But also, I remember when I was pledging in college, a sorority, and actually, I'm gonna have to whisper this, when I was pre-pledging, because you're not supposed to do that. But this was back in the day when pledging was pledging, and I had a lot. I mean, it was hard. It was so hard, and I had a car, so one week I knew it was gonna be a tough weekend, and I called my mother, and I was like, Mom, I need you to come here, please, and pick me up and take me away for the weekend. But you have to take my roommate too, because if I leave her, they're gonna question her and she's not gonna know what to say. So even though my roommate wasn't pledging with me or anything, but I knew in the future she, had aspirations to join a sorority. So I was like, you have to take both of us. And she was like, all right, well, I can meet you. I said, no, I can't drive my car. I need you to pick us up on the outskirts of campus. Because if I take my car, they're going to know I left. I need them to think I'm still on campus somewhere. They just can't find me. So my mother was like, she was down for that. So she came, picked us up one Friday night. It was late. We had our bag, snuck off campus, and got into the car. And I felt like I had reached freedom. I felt like a runaway, and I had reached freedom. She drove off, got a hotel room. Thing is, we weren't too far from campus, but we got a hotel room, ate, slept. We went to the botanical gardens, walked around, took pictures, just had a wonderful time. This is before social media, so it wasn't like we was gonna be posting anything or nothing like that, but it was wonderful. I appreciated her so much for that, because I was like, this right here. And you know, my mother never told me like what she couldn't do. She never, if I asked for something, she never said she couldn't afford it, we couldn't afford it. You know, somehow, some way, she got it for me. And I truly appreciate her for doing that. I mean, you know, she never let me worry about those types of things. I have no idea what the situation was or anything like that. I think it was pretty good, but you just never know. As a parent, I'm realizing you just never know. Some of the things that my legacies would ask, I'm thinking like, wow, yeah, I wonder how did my mother do it? Because kids are expensive. But you know, how her and my father did it. You know, they were together, doing it together. And I mean, I think that's the key, doing it together. So yeah, she would always make it happen. I remember I was in a debutante ball. I was in 2 debutante balls, one in high school and one in college. The one in high school, I remember the gown, I had borrowed it from someone who wore a white gown to her prom the year before. Shout out to Sandy. It was beautiful. Luckily, we were the same size. It fit me perfectly. And I was down for that. I wasn't one of those girls that had to have, you know, oh, I gotta be, you know, made by Da Vinci or nothing. No, I was good. As long as it was beautiful, it was quality. The next year, my freshman year, I was in a debutante ball in college. And my mother, I don't know how she did it, but she brought me one of the most beautiful white wedding gowns. I mean, one of the people in the organization that hosted the debutante ball was like, Sherri, when I get married, I want to borrow that dress. That is gorgeous. It was stunning. I know the pictures are at my dad's. I would put them in this video, but anyway, yeah, my mother sent it to me. She even came to the ball. I ran for the miss of my college, and she got my outfits that I needed. I came home one weekend. I told her, you know, for the competition or the pageant, you know, we had to dance. We had to perform. I played the flute. That was my instrument. You know, we had to have like 3 or 4 different outfits. And I came home, and my mother took me shopping, and we got my outfits. I remember when I moved from New Orleans to Charlotte, and my son was 6 months old, and my husband, he had just came to Charlotte to and he signed with the Panthers. And so his mother and I were left back in New Orleans to close the house and everything. My mother-in-law, her flight left like the day before mine did. And I just remember, like, I didn't realize that I had packed my son's car seat with everything that was being shipped to our new, because we had bought a house in Charlotte, to our new home. And I was like, oh my goodness, when it was time to go to the airport, like, wait, I don't have a car seat for my 6-month-old. This is going to be crazy. I knew I was going to be straight for the flight because I could hold him. But, you know, leaving because we were flying to New Jersey because we were having his christening in New Jersey, where I'm from, my home church. And his christening, you guys, was amazing. We had 200 people there. We had a reception that was like a wedding reception. It was so beautiful. He was like a prince. But I also realized I packed my outfit that I was going to wear to the christening. So I arrived to New Jersey Friday night. This was a challenge. I had rented the car, and that was the situation. So I don't know, somehow I strapped him up in the back, Prayed that his neck would be strong enough to sustain him for the ride from Newark Airport to Teaneck. And, you know, just called it a prayer. I knew when I got to my parents, they would have a car seat because I had, you know, baby nieces and nephews or younger nieces and nephews, and my parents had all that crib, all that at the house. So I knew we just had to get there safely. Luckily, thankfully, gratefully, we did. But when I got there, I told my mother, I said, Mom, I don't have anything to wear on Sunday. I packed it all up. It's on its way to Charlotte. She was like, Sherri, Darlene. That's what she would call me, my whole name, honestly. So the next day, Saturday, we had to gather my son up, get everybody together. She took me to the mall. I was exhausted. You know, I know my mother-in-law was too. My mother-in-law has been a blessing as well. You know, packing up the house, making sure everything was gonna go okay, closing on the house, making sure I had all the documents, closing down the house in New Orleans, just a lot going on. So I was exhausted. I really just wanted to spend that Saturday just doing nothing, but I had to find an outfit. And we went to Saks, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this way of shopping, but if you go to a really nice store, you don't have to look through anything. Like this, if it's really good customer service, the sales consultants will bring everything to you. And so I basically sat in the the dressing room, which was beautiful, and with my mom and my baby, we had beverages. You know, I was nursing, so I wasn't drinking any alcoholic beverages. My mother wasn't either, but they gave us beverages, made us comfortable, and they brought me amazing suits and dresses and whatnot. When I decided on the outfit, they went down to the shoe department, got my shoes. They went to the accessory department, got me accessories, brought them all back for me to select. And my mother was bugging out because she had never shopped like that before. She was like, wait, they going down to the shoe department and bringing up boxes of shoes. And that's how I did it. And my mom was with me. So years later, I started a jewelry business by accident. And I say by accident because it was supposed to be just a hobby. My husband and I did a real estate development project that blew my brain up. Ooh, it was so much to take in, learn, navigate, swim around sharks. You know, it was interesting. I was a CFO and the director of marketing and sales, plus had 3 small children. And when it was done, I somehow accidentally, I see a boxer up ahead. This is my favorite dog of all time. I love boxers. To me, they're like little boys in a dog suit. But at any rate, I don't know how, but I found out that my closet was like a safe place. It was a quiet place. And hi, how are you? How old is your boxer?
3.
He is adorable.
Okay.
And so, so somehow one day I ended up in my closet. I had a really nice sized closet, and it was so quiet in there. I literally could hear myself think. And when I realized how peaceful it was, every now and again throughout the weeks, I would go in my closet and just lay in there and listen. Because when I thought I was hearing myself think, I was really hearing God's voice. And I was praying to God, God, what do you have for me? What will you have me to do? Like, what? I've done all these things and my brain is tired but what is for me? You know, I've supported my husband in his ventures and endeavors, but what do you have for me? And one day he said, jewelry, a necklace that can hold eyeglasses or a name badge. I hadn't worked in like a corporate setting at that time for like 7 years or something, like years. So I didn't even know what he was talking about. I never knew, you know, any of that. When I worked, we didn't have name badges. So one day I was driving with my husband and I said, can you stop at this bookstore? And he's like, all right, because we love bookstores anyway. So we went in and I asked the lady, the sales lady, I said, do you have books on jewelry, like beads or something, how to make jewelry? She's like, oh yeah, because I didn't even know that was a thing. I don't know why, but I just wasn't, you guys, this was like 2004, maybe 3, 4. So I looked, she took me to the section and it had magazines, it had books, had all kinds of things. And I was like, wow, it's a lot to choose from. And so I know there's a fork in the road, but I always go this way. I never go that way. So anyway, wow, look at these trees. I looked through the books, saw the design that came to my mind from God, and I was like, wow, okay, I think I could do that. So I wanted to see where I can buy beads. I didn't even know where you could buy stuff to make a necklace or anything. So I went and looked in the yellow pages. This is when the yellow pages was a thing still. This is before Google and all that. And I saw that there were some bead stores, like one in particular was called Bead Lush in Charlotte. And wow, this is really rocky. And which way do I want to go? All these forks in the roads. They need to have a sign to tell you where you're going to end up. I think I go this way. So I haven't been on this road in a long time. But anyway, yeah, I went to the store and it was like a candy store for beads and all kind of gadgets to make jewelry. It was amazing, beautiful. I was like a kid in the candy store. So I started filling up my basket, and when I went home that night and nights to come, I sat in my family room when everybody was asleep, when the kids were down, and I would just make these necklaces that had these toggles at the end to hold a person's eyeglass or name badge. Made hundreds of them, different colors, different styles, but the same purpose. So one day, my friend that I grew up with named Sonia, shout out to Sonia, she lived in New Jersey and she worked for Time Warner Inc., which is the parent over Essence and other magazines and publications and whatnot. I don't know if they still are, but back then that's what they were. And she came to my house and I had my jewelry in like these shadow kind of boxes just all over the place. And so she was curious and was like, what is this? And I said, oh, it's nothing. It's just, something I do just to pass time or whatever. She was like, these are beautiful, Sherri. You should be selling them. I said, you think? She said, yeah. People at my job would love this. See that? The fitness equipment is closed. That's another thing. These trails have these like fitness areas. So I was like, you think so? And she said, yeah. People would love it. And so I said, well, I never thought about it. She said, you need to get your license. And my company has this like business expo for small and new businesses, really for like the employees that have, a small business that they want to showcase. And I think you should go. I think you should be part of it. I'll sign you up. But first, get your business license and get it together. And I was like, are you serious? She was like, yes. So I think this is all new. I don't remember this brook running through here like this, but this is nice. So I researched, got my small business license for that. Then the Expo Center here in Charlotte at the time was having a new business event. Like if you had a new business, you wanted to see if it was going to work or not, you can come and do it. And so I signed up for that. And I was like, I think I might need to make bracelets. I don't, everybody's not going to want a necklace. So I started making bracelets, had all this inventory, went, and it was a hit. And so it gave me encouragement, and, it really motivated me to know that I could do well at the Essence event, because it was being held, the one that my friend told me about was being held at the Essence's office in New York. So I called my mother. I said, Mom, I'm be coming up to New York to do this event at Essence. You want to come with me? She's like, yeah. She always was down. She's like, yeah, I'll come. I was like, all right. I think it might have been like in 2 weeks. So we went. I remember flying up, and all the jewelry I made, I had to pay extra for the bag because it was 50 pounds worth of jewelry. And my mother and I walked the streets of New York, set up. I'm gonna sit down here. You guys, I walked for 45 minutes. But yeah, we set up and sold so many pieces. Even at the time, the editor was Susan Taylor. She brought a necklace. The other one, Taylor too, brought something, and they really loved it. And so from there, when I came back to Charlotte, I had some friends that came over, and one of them was a nurse, and her name is Vernona. Shout out to Vernona. She's actually my homegirl from Teaneck too, but her and her family moved to Charlotte. And she was like, wow, my company is always looking for gifts for the nurses. If you can get something with nursing something on it, that would be great. And I was able to get it and do it, and her company ordered 300 necklaces from me. And then from there, because it was such a hit, she was like, I could sell this. Like your jewelry, if you can make regular jewelry, I could sell it. So then I started making just like regular earrings, necklace sets, things like that. And I started putting together these bags, like with pouches and zippers and things to put, jewelry in. I had found them at the wholesale store. And I put together a bag for her, a price list, and she sold, and I would give her 40% of everything she sold, period. And she would come back, she'd have her receipt book, so I know what she sold. She told me what was hot, what was not. And from there, I had another friend who was a teacher who said she wanted to do it. And on teacher work days, she set up the jewelry in her room like a show. Then from there, I remember Katrina happened. And at that point, I had started doing other events like vending events and stuff. And I met other vendors, people that did direct sales and stuff like that. So I had a really big list of people. And when Katrina happened, I wanted to support the families that had taken people that were affected in. So like people I knew that lived in Houston and Atlanta and stuff like that, that had, maybe it was just 3 of them in their house, but now there's 12 or 15 of them in that one house. And I found that they needed support. So I held a vending event, and I had invited at my clubhouse, and I had invited vendors from all different types of industries to come, and they had to donate an item, and we created this huge basket and did a raffle, and people were invited, and they came and bought, from the different vendors, but they brought raffle tickets to try to win the basket. And all that money, I I brought Walmart gift cards and sent it to the families. One of my good friends in Houston, Carla, shout out to Carla, she gave me some names of families that she knew of as well as her, and I sent the gift cards to those families. And from that event, this woman was there and was like, Sherri, your jewelry is so beautiful. I have a friend that does trunk shows for this clothing line. It's a boutique style clothing, and maybe you and her could collaborate. And so I did that, and that was amazing. It was called etc. clothing. The clothes were beautiful, and all different types of women came, bank executives, NASCAR driving wives, football wives, just a lot of, it was really high-end clothing. And so I designed the jewelry, and at that time I started to utilize a outsource person to make some of my staple pieces in New York. So my husband and I would go to New York to the jewelry district and do it that way. And then I had consultants everywhere at this time, in Atlanta, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Charlotte, of course, Texas, everywhere. And it was really big. It was bigger than I had imagined, because it was just a hobby, remember that. My mother loved it. She was so proud. She would, always want to come and see the jewelry when she would come visit and everything. And if I really would have thought about it, it was really a homage to her, because all the jewelry that I had designed was like my mother's style, Then I started to get into brides, and that's where it turned left. Brides are like the worst. They are so freaking picky. It was driving me bananas. And, I would do the whole party, the bridal party, the brides and everything. I mean, it was lucrative, but it was just too stressful. I was trying to find something easy breezy. So what I ended up doing was selling that business to one of my consultants in Georgia. And, what I learned from that is you always have to have a plan. You always have to have a business plan before you start something. Even if you think it's going to be a hobby, if it has the potential to be a business, you need to set it up as such in the beginning, because you just never know where it will go. At any rate, one thing that I really learned from my mother, and learned it well, is networking. I learned that from my dad as well, because they both networked in their business. That's how their business was able to thrive and survive for 40 years, because they knew the value of staying connected with people, communicating, showing up for other people, not always having something that you want them to do, but also having something for them, just being a valued resource. And that is a valuable lesson. If you have not learned that, it's not too late, and I recommend that you try. My mother was definitely the first life coach I've ever experienced. A lot of people would come to her for advice on everything from relationships to business, money, homes. My parents bought their first home after they got married. They were 19 and 21 when they got married. And by the time my mother was 20 and my father was 22, they had purchased their first house, which back then was unheard of. This is back in like 1959, 1960. And so they put their heads together. They found that they had more success together than not. And that's definitely a valuable lesson. When my mother passed away, they had been married at that time for 51 years. And not saying every day was perfect, but they realized that together they were stronger. Yeah, I remember my mother caught the shingles when I was planning my wedding. I think she was so, maybe, I don't know if it was nervous or overwhelmed or what. I mean, it wasn't too stressful to me, doing my wedding, but I guess she really wanted it to be perfect. And she came down with the shingles, you guys. It was incredible. She was better by the time, the wedding came. The one thing that I really love, and I'm so happy I was able to do this, is I got my wedding gown from the same place. My wedding gown and my bridesmaids' dresses from the same place that my mother had gotten her wedding gown and her bridesmaids' gowns. My parents had a pretty lavish wedding for back in the 50s. And so the place, the boutique that she got her dresses from was still open. It's still in the same location. And we told them, like this 35 years later, here I am getting my dress. And they thought that was remarkable. They said that in that area, they hear of that a lot. A lot of daughters and, mothers having bought their dresses from the same place, from them. So that was pretty cool. Every place we moved to, my mother and my mother-in-law, especially my mother though, especially when we moved to St. Louis, would come to help me set up my house. And that's why, like, since my mother has passed away, I don't know, the homes that we've moved to since that we've gotten just haven't been the same. And I don't know if it's because I'm missing her touch. Not that she would do anything different than I wanted her to do, but I don't know, it just hasn't been the same. It's just not that important. It doesn't mean as much to me. The people in the home means so much more, but the home itself doesn't mean that much to me. When we moved to Charlotte, well, let me backtrack. When we moved to St. Louis, I loved the townhouse that we had in St. Louis. I thought it was the cat's meow. That townhouse was everything to me. And when we first moved in, my mother came down and she helped me buy, furniture for it. She went with me to get furniture. It was a small townhouse. I mean, we had 2 bedrooms. It was a nice, spacious townhouse, but it didn't have like a lot of rooms. So we didn't have to have a lot of furniture, just some filler pieces, because we did bring furniture with us too. But it was nice having her there. She was kind of helping me set up the house, and my husband was at camp. So she was like, Sherri's important when he comes home, that it's a home. It's not just, you're still not putting stuff away. And, within like a week, we had it looking like we've been living there for years. It was great because when he came home from camp, he was really comfortable. He was happy and everything. I remember, because it was just the 3 of us, he had tickets to go see D.L. Hughley. And this is like in the beginning, I think this was like 96 or 95. This was 1995. And my mother, to the day she died, would say D.L. Hughley was her favorite comedian. And I think it's because, she saw him live and he was saying stuff to her. She was saying stuff back to him. He was saying stuff about the Rams, because that was the first year the Rams were in St. Louis. And so it was cool. Then when we moved to North Carolina, and we basically at that point got like our dream home, and my mother and mother-in-law came to help me fill it. It was a huge home, 5 bedrooms, 4 baths, and more space than we've ever had at that point. I remember taking them to Furnitureland South. If you live anywhere near the Carolinas and if you want furniture, I mean, the most amazing place to buy it is Furnitureland South. And my mother and mother-in-law have amazing taste in furniture. They have beautiful furniture in their homes, and they know quality. They're not into that rooms to go type stuff. They know quality. Ethan Allen type furniture, drapes that are made type quality. And it was such a pleasure to me to expose them to being able to buy whatever you wanted without having to put it on layaway or saving up. Even they said it. They both was like looking at each other, and they said, wow, when we did it, we had to save, we had to put things on layaway, and look, here we are with our son and daughter, and we're able to, experience it through them, to just buy it when you see it, what you want. And so I love that they got that opportunity through us. It's almost like vicariously. That's what you want from your kids. You want to expose them to everything, give them what you can, but then you want them to take it to the next level, and you also want to experience that next level with them. So I was glad at that moment that my mother and mother-in-law could experience that with us, to be able to go to the store, have the sales consultant look at the floor plan and help us design it, and be able to order everything, pay for everything, and just wait for it to be delivered, And then when they would come back throughout the year, and because when you order furniture, it doesn't just come the next day. It could take a couple of weeks. It could take a couple of months in some instances, but I loved my mother's reaction when she would come back. Oh, you've got that piece. Okay, that's the piece. I remember my first dining room set. My mother and mother-in-law again were with me in New Orleans. I brought it, and I still have it to this day. And it was a big decision, you know. Do I do a traditional dining room or do I do something more contemporary, and the reasons why or why not? And, you know, they were great think tank partners when it came to making decisions like that. You know, I'm into timeless pieces, and so are they. So it worked out well. Yeah. And that's why when my mother got sick, I remember she was sick for a long time before she was fully diagnosed or diagnosed, period, with ALS. But she was sick for a long time, and we just never could understand what was going on. My parents lived 4 hours away. They had retired and moved, and they were closer to me. So instead of a 10 or 11-hour drive, they were now just a 4-hour drive. And she had started falling, like just random. It was the craziest falls too. It was like a 2-year-old, a toddler, just learning to walk type of fall. And I couldn't understand, like, Mom, why couldn't you catch yourself? Like, who falls like that? And she didn't know. She was like, I don't know. You know, I just couldn't do it. And so we went to, you know, doctors. I would go up. It was really hard for me because they call it, my aunt, who's a nurse, told me, you're in the sandwich generation. That's when you're in between taking care of your family and your parents. You know, my kids were still relatively young. I think my youngest at the time was like 5 or 6 years old. My son was like, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 9 years old. You know, I had 3 kids and my husband, but I'm back and forth driving 4 hours to my mother's doctor's appointments trying to figure out what's going on. And then finally she was diagnosed with ALS, and I had to stop my world at some point. We all did. My whole entire family had to stop our world as we knew it and full time take care of her. And it was like the most unbalanced thing I've ever did, but it was the most ordered step thing I ever did. I didn't know anything about medicine, like the medical field or anything. Never had a desire to know. And I learned how to be a respiratory therapist, basically. I had to take care of her ventilator 24/7. I learned how to take care of her feeding tube and feed her through it. I learned how to administer her medicine to her. I learned how to take care of her trachea. I learned how to just do everything that she needed to do and have to live. We had no nurse that was willing to come and take care of her. And that's when I realized money don't mean a thing, because even when I told the nurses at the local hospital, we'll pay you $100 an hour if you could just come and relieve me, they wouldn't do it because of her ventilator. They were all scared of her ventilator, which is so ironic to me in this day that we're in right now, where ventilators are a hot commodity. Yeah, you know, I mean, my mother was a warrior. You know, she could have had better care somewhere else, but she wanted to make a difference, a positive difference where she was at because of the lack that was there. She didn't want anyone coming behind her to experience the same challenges that she was having. So we were charged to make it better. I literally took her to the state capitol in Richmond to talk to the congressman about the situation with healthcare in her area. You know, we became an advocate. We became an ambassador family for the ALS Association in the DMV. And those are the types of things that she's taught me. When it's hard, you don't leave. When it's hard, you don't walk away. When it's hard, you don't come. When it's hard, you stay. When it's hard, you fight. When it's hard, you do even better, and your best will come out. And I was so honored to take care of her. It's almost like being chosen to have experienced those highs, those lows, those in the middle of the night, pain is so unbearable. We have to drive an hour to get to Richmond, to go to the hospital, to get her pain management. Staying in the hospital with her every single solitary day and night for 6 weeks in the hospital, sleeping on a chair in the ICU where there's nothing, you know. I'm honored to have done all that for her because I know that she would have done that and more for me and has. So that to me was the least I can do to honor her life, to make sure that her last days were some of her best days. Yeah, because she was on a ventilator, the quality of life had changed, but it was still a quality of life. Every single solitary day, I made sure her feet touched the ground. I never allowed her to lay in bed all day, not even half a day. Every morning I got her up, washed her face, brushed her teeth, did her hair, dressed her, got her up and seated, had a very comfortable wheelchair for her. It was top notch, better than some cars. It was actually remote control too. It was kind of cool. Took her for walks outside. Didn't give a damn that her ventilator would beep and people were looking and whatnot. We got a handicap accessible van and I was able to drive her places, to get ice cream with the kids, to pick up the kids from school. A dog found us and we adopted it, Angel, and I would take her for walks with Angel, and it was a quality of life that changed, but it was still a quality of life. It was interesting because when she passed, they were like, yeah, she was disabled or whatever. And I was like, she was? I didn't even think of her as being disabled. I know I had to literally do every single solitary thing for her, but I never looked at her as being disabled because her mind was still good. With ALS, it kills your body, but it doesn't kill your mind. So my kids, they learned so much from that experience too. They learned how to be compassionate, how to have patience, how to be a caregiver. Most kids don't know that. They don't know what that means. They hear it, but they don't know what that really means. They don't know the sacrifice. My kids know the sacrifice. That's special. I remember my daughters would bring in the Monopoly game. They would pull it into her room and set it up, and they would be like, all right, Nana, we're going to play Monopoly. Who do you want to be? You want to be the car or the thumbnail, the thump it or whatever they would call it. The thumb thing that you use for when you are sewing or whatever. And she would be there. They would make her moves. They would wait for her like as if she could do it. And then they would, all right, I got it for you. I got it. They'll roll the dice for her, and they would love it. My center child at the age of 9 knew how to suction out her lungs. She would suction her lungs for me. 9 years old. And I felt 100% confident that she was doing it well. Whew. Yeah. Yep. So my mother passed when I was 40 and she was 70. And I got my last life lessons from her when I was 40. It's amazing. I remember her last birthday like it was yesterday. I remember it was a weekday. It was very hectic that day. My kids had school. They came home, was helping them with their homework. I was trying to cook, picking up the cake. My husband was at the time coaching track, so he wasn't home yet. My dad, I don't know where he was. He was in and out. He was there. And my kids had baseball games, softball games. My cousin Lavelle, shout out to Lavelle, and her family came over to celebrate my mom's birthday, to sing a happy birthday. We did all that. Lavelle said, don't worry about it. I'm going to clean up after this. You go ahead to the kids' game real quick. I had to run out. Then I had to come back. It was just a lot, but I remember it. And it just was a lot. And I'm just glad I made it happen. Just glad it happened. Had no idea that would be the last one. You never know. Whether you're healthy or not, you never know when it's going to be your last birthday. And that was her last birthday. April 16th. 2010. So here we are 10 years later. And the lessons that I've learned in that time in my life, just my 40 years with her as my mother, are still serving me to this day. So I definitely am dedicating this video to my mother, Jessie Lillian Garland Barnes. She was a phenomenal woman. She was a virtuous woman. If you look up the scripture in the Bible that talks about the virtuous woman, that scripture is my mother. That just that defines her. That describes her. She was an amazing wife. She was dedicated, devoted. You know, she did things that wives, I don't know any wife today that will do. You know, she worked side by side with my dad, came home, cooked, made his plate, took his plate to him. You know, that was a wife right there. She was a good woman, a great mother, supportive, always knew she'd have my back regardless. You know, if you were wrong as her child, she would have your back, but behind closed doors, she'd be like, you know, that wasn't right. Like, what the hell? But she'd fight there, right there next to you, to the bitter end. You know, she wasn't pushy. She wasn't overbearing. She was unselfish and just amazing. I look at my youngest of 3 and she reminds me a lot of my mother. And I remember I recognized that when she was a lot younger. And I was like, wow, thank you, God, you know, for allowing me to experience her, my mom, through my daughter. That's awesome. They're the same sign also, Aries. So at any rate, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this walk with me video. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you all. I appreciate your comments, your support. Yep. In this time, it's good to reflect. If it means going outside to do it, then do so. To clear your mind. My mind is definitely cleared right now. I know I have other stories to share about my mom and a bunch to share about my dad and my brothers and my husband and my kids and myself that I will. This is all real talk. Until we speak again, I want you all to remember to stay safe. And until we speak again, always remember this has been Real Talk with Coach Sherri.